Welcome to our deep dive into the world of John Carmack. You've sent us a treasure trove of articles and interviews about the man who quite literally shaped the way we experience video games today. From Doom to Quake, Carmack's code brought 3D worlds to life. So buckle up, because today we're not just tracing his journey, but also exploring his impact on gaming and the tech world as a whole.
What's fascinating is that these sources paint a vivid picture not just of a technical genius, but of a person driven by an almost relentless need to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, did you know Doom almost had a totally different ending? Or that Carmack once gave away a Ferrari as a prize in a Quake tournament. Talk about a competitive spirit. But beyond those fun facts, I'm really curious about how his early experiences shaped his whole approach to programming. You mentioned that his work with limited computer power was crucial. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. Imagine a time when computers were incredibly limited in terms of processing power and memory. To create anything remotely complex, programmers like Carmack had to be incredibly resourceful. Squeezing every ounce of performance out of the hardware, it forced him to optimize every single line of code, to find ingenious workarounds just to make things function.
Wow. The TRS-80. I remember seeing those in old magazines.
Yeah.
I think that's where it all began for him. He's incredible. His first program was that classic 10 print line. But even then, he was obsessed with making it scroll smoothly, using the hardware's text output capabilities. It's like that early exposure to optimization set the stage for his entire career.
Precisely. And that drive to optimize, to push the limits of what was technically possible, is a recurring theme throughout his career. This wasn't just about making games run. It was about achieving his vision within the constraints of the technology available at the time.
And that's where Softdisk comes in.
Right.
This software subscription company was where he met John Romero and the others who would later form id Software. What was it about that environment that allowed his talent to flourish?
Softdisk was a pivotal stepping stone. It provided Carmack with the opportunity to experiment, to hone his programming skills in a practical setting. He and Romero worked on games like Dangerous Dave, which, while simple by today's standards, allowed them to explore different programming techniques and develop their collaborative workflow.
And let's not forget the story of how they almost got into hot water for working on their own game, Commander Keen, while still employed at Softdisk. It's like they had this entrepreneurial spirit, this burning desire to create something entirely new, even if it meant taking a risk.
Absolutely. That story highlights their ambition and their willingness to push boundaries, even if it meant bending the rules a little. They were essentially moonlighting, using their work computers to develop their own project. This entrepreneurial spirit was always there, pushing them to create something new and exciting.
Commander Keen was their first real breakthrough. But what really fascinates me is the moment when Carmack's vision took a giant leap forward. The move into true 3D. Catacomb 3D was a major milestone, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Those early texture mapped walls must have blown people's minds.
You can imagine seeing those pixelated walls for the first time. It was a revelation. It gave players a sense of depth and immersion that hadn't been experienced before. Catacomb 3D was revolutionary, a glimpse into the future of gaming.
I bet it was both mind-blowing and maybe even a little frightening for some players. But it was Wolfenstein 3D that truly cemented Carmack's reputation as a 3D gaming pioneer. What were the key technical innovations he introduced there?
Carmack took a bold step with Wolfenstein 3D. He simplified the engine, sacrificing a degree of visual perfection for speed and playability now. This is a crucial insight. Sometimes a less technically perfect solution can result in a more engaging and enjoyable experience. This wasn't about creating photorealistic graphics. It was about creating a world that felt real, a world that players could move through seamlessly.
He wasn't afraid to make those trade-offs, and it paid off. And remember, this was all before the widespread adoption of 3D graphics cards. He was achieving these incredible results on machines that, by today's standards, seem incredibly primitive.
And absolutely, that's what makes his achievements even more remarkable. He was constantly pushing the limits of what was possible with the hardware available, finding ingenious ways to overcome technical limitations and create experiences that felt truly groundbreaking. And then came Doom. It wasn't just a game. It was a cultural phenomenon. What technical wizardry did Carmack employ to create such a groundbreaking experience?
Doom was revolutionary on so many levels. Visually, it was stunning for its time. But what's fascinating is how Carmack used what he called smoking mirrors, these clever techniques that made the game appear far more technically advanced than it actually was.
He was a master of illusion. Instead of rendering true 3D environments, which would have been incredibly demanding on the hardware of the time. He used clever tricks with 2D sprites and perspective manipulation. It was a stroke of genius.
Really? It's incredible how he created this sense of depth and realism using essentially 2D elements. It's like a magician using sleight of hand to create an impossible illusion. But wasn't there a point where those tricks reached their limits? Did he ever feel constrained by this approach?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of Carmack's philosophy. He was always pushing the envelope. But he was also pragmatic. He understood that sometimes you have to work within constraints to achieve your goals, and those constraints, in a way, fueled his creativity.
But those limitations actually pushed him to be even more innovative, and one of those innovations was something called the reject lump. Right, what was that all about?
The reject lump. A brilliant optimization technique. Imagine you're playing Doom. The game doesn't need to render everything in the level at once, only what the player can actually see. The reject lump was a way to pre-calculate which parts of the environment were visible, so the engine wouldn't waste precious processing power drawing things that were hidden behind walls or out of the player's field of view. This evolved into the potentially visible set in later games, like Quake.
So he was constantly refining his techniques, finding new ways to make things faster and more efficient. And speaking of Quake, this was his attempt to create a truly 3D world, wasn't it?
Yes.
No more smoke and mirrors, just pure, unadulterated 3D geometry. That must have been an enormous challenge.
Imagine tackling real-time lighting, complex level design, and maintaining smooth performance, all on hardware that was still relatively limited compared to what we have today. It was a monumental undertaking.
And to help him with this challenge, he brought in Michael Abrash, one of his programming idols. That's a story in itself. I mean, imagine working alongside your hero. It speaks volumes about Carmack's humility and his willingness to collaborate with others.
It does. Bringing in Abrash, known for his expertise in graphics and assembly language, was a strategic move. It highlights the importance of seeking out diverse skill sets, even when you're at the top of your game. Collaboration and the exchange of ideas are essential for pushing the boundaries of innovation.
And it wasn't just about pushing the boundaries of what games could look like. Carmack was also a champion of open source software. He released the source code for games like Doom and Quake, something almost unheard of at the time. Why was that so important to him?
Carmack believed in sharing knowledge, in empowering others to learn from his work and build upon it. This wasn't about protecting intellectual property. It was about fostering a community of innovation, a collective effort to push the boundaries of what was possible.
And it led to an explosion of creativity, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Modding became a phenomenon, with players creating their own levels, characters, even entirely new game modes. It's amazing to think about the ripple effect of that one decision.
Absolutely. The impact of releasing the source code went far beyond Carmack's initial intentions. It democratized game development, allowing anyone with the passion and technical skills to participate in the creation of new experiences.
This is where his pragmatism really comes into play, isn't it?
Right.
He later expressed reservations about Linux as a gaming platform, despite being a strong advocate for open source. How do we reconcile those seemingly contradictory positions?
Carmack was never one to be bound by ideology. He recognized that while Linux had its merits technically, it lacked the widespread adoption and developer support to truly compete with Windows in the gaming market. It was a pragmatic assessment of the realities of the industry.
So he was able to separate his personal preferences from the practical considerations of achieving his goals. It's a valuable lesson for all of us.
Indeed. It's about making informed decisions based on a clear-eyed assessment of the situation.
Yeah.
It's about being adaptable and willing to change course when necessary. And that leads us to Carmack's current passion, artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
Now, this is a topic that's both exciting and a little bit terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're talking about machines that can think and reason like humans.
Yeah.
It has the potential to revolutionize everything, but it also comes with a lot of ethical questions. What's Carmack's take on all of this?
Carmack sees AGI as the ultimate challenge, the holy grail of computer science. He believes that creating machines that can truly think would have profound implications for humanity. But he's also aware of the potential risks. He's not naive about the potential dangers, you know, the Skynet scenario we see in science fiction.
He's even likened it to the Manhattan Project in terms of its potential impact. But he's emphasized the importance of responsible development, ensuring that these powerful technologies are aligned with human values. I mean, you're talking about creating something that could potentially surpass human intelligence. That's a responsibility we can't take lightly.
Right. He often talks about the need to be proactive in shaping the future of AI, rather than just reacting to whatever emerges. It's about setting ethical guidelines, thinking through the potential consequences, and ensuring that these technologies are used for good.
And he's putting his money where his mouth is.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
He stepped down from his role at Meta to focus on his own AGI startup, Keen Technologies. It's a bold move, giving up a high-profile position to pursue something so uncertain.
It is. It shows his commitment to this vision,
Yeah.
his willingness to take risks and pursue something he believes in, and with his track record. It'll be fascinating to see what he accomplishes in this new venture.
That same drive, that relentless pursuit of tackling impossible problems. It's evident in everything he does. But before we dive into his personal philosophies, let's take a quick detour and revisit those early games like Doom. You mentioned that they didn't have the sophisticated level design tools we have today. How did they create those iconic levels with such limited resources?
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? They were working with simple editors, rudimentary tools by today's standards. It required a lot of imagination, a deep understanding of spatial relationships, and a willingness to experiment.
It really makes you appreciate the ingenuity and resourcefulness of those early game developers. They had to be incredibly creative, using abstract symbols and color-coded blocks to represent different game elements. It was like building a world out of Lego bricks.
Yeah.
But instead of physical blocks, they were manipulating lines of code and pixels on a screen.
And it wasn't just about creating the levels, it was about making them fun to play. They spent countless hours playtesting, refining the gameplay, balancing the difficulty, and ensuring that the experience was both challenging and rewarding.
It's a testament to their dedication and passion. They weren't just programmers, they were artists and storytellers, using technology to create immersive and engaging experiences. And speaking of passion, Carmack himself is known for his incredible work ethic and his unique approach to problem solving. What can we learn from his methods?
Well, Carmack is famous for his intense focus and discipline. For years, he adhered to a rigorous schedule, working 10-hour days, 6 days a week. But it wasn't just about putting in the hours, it was about how he used that time.
He believed in understanding the entire system, from the low-level hardware to the high-level software design. He felt that gave him a holistic perspective, allowing him to optimize performance at every level. It's like you could see the forest in the trees, understanding how each individual component contributed to the overall picture.
That's a powerful lesson for anyone working in a technical field. It's not enough to be a specialist in one narrow area. You need to have a broader understanding of how all the pieces fit together, how the system functions as a whole. And Carmack wasn't just a theorist, he was a hands-on programmer.
Right. He wasn't afraid to dive into the code, to get his hands dirty and figure things out for himself. He even wrote his own programming tools when the existing ones weren't good enough. That kind of initiative and self-reliance is inspiring.
Absolutely. That hands-on approach, that willingness to experiment and tinker, is crucial for any innovator. It's how you gain a deep understanding of the underlying systems and discover new ways of doing things. And let's not forget his choice of programming languages. C and C++, known for their power and complexity, were his tools of choice for decades.
He valued efficiency and performance above all else. Those languages allowed him to write code that was very close to the metal, squeezing every last bit of performance out of the machine. But even Carmack, with his deep love for those languages, recognized their limitations, especially as software projects became larger and more complex.
He understood that the choice of tools should always be driven by the specific needs of the project. He even began using Python for some of his AI work, acknowledging the convenience and power of its libraries. It's a reminder that we shouldn't be dogmatic about our tools. We should choose the ones that best fit the task at hand.
And that pragmatic, problem-solving mindset extends far beyond his work in programming. We see it in his ventures into rocket science with Armadillo Aerospace, his personal fitness routines, even his decision to give away a Ferrari as a prize in a Quake tournament. Talk about pushing the boundaries.
It's a testament to his unconventional thinking and his willingness to challenge the status quo. And beyond his technical brilliance, he's also a fascinating individual with a unique set of values and beliefs. He's an atheist, a libertarian, a strong advocate for personal freedom and responsibility.
And he's never been afraid to express those beliefs, even when they've been controversial. He's always been willing to engage in thoughtful debate and challenge conventional wisdom. But despite his strong opinions, he's also incredibly generous with his time and knowledge. He's always been willing to share what he's learned and to mentor others.
That's evident in his advocacy for open source software and his engagement with the gaming community. He's always been more interested in pushing the boundaries of knowledge and innovation than in personal gain or recognition.
It's inspiring to see someone with his level of success and accomplishment remain so grounded and focused on what truly matters. He's a reminder that innovation isn't just about technical brilliance. It's about curiosity, passion, and a relentless pursuit of excellence.
He's shown us that it's possible to achieve extraordinary things by questioning assumptions, embracing failure as a learning opportunity, and never losing sight of the bigger picture.
John Carmack's journey is a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the importance of pursuing your passions with unwavering determination.
He is a true visionary, and his work will continue to inspire and influence generations to come.
That's all for this deep dive into the world of John Carmack. Thanks for joining us.